But German society had been irreparably damaged by the trauma of this hyperinflation. Because when the nation's currency collapsed, those on fixed incomes were impoverished. I'll list up the impacts here. There was poverty for those on fixed incomes. The savings were wiped out of pretty much everybody in the country. So if you had retired in 1915 or 1918, and you hoped to have 10, 20 years in retirement on your savings, you had a rude awakening. Your money was now worthless. And there are people today in America who are retiring and discovering that the value of their life labor, that is their savings, is now disappearing in front of them. It's a great tragedy. The middle class was destroyed. There was rampant financial speculation. There was a collapse in a sense of civic responsibility. There was a collapse in personal morality and national morale. Unions became very powerful, negotiating inflation-busting deals. Trust in public institutions collapsed. There was extreme social division and political polarization. The center collapsed politically, and people started voting for the extreme right-wingers or the extreme left-wingers because they seemed to have clear-cut solutions. There was mob violence on the streets. The looting of stores went unpunished. Petty crime, the police turned a blind eye to it. There was a daily struggle on the part of every citizen simply to find food to eat for the day. There was a rise in anti-Semitism and hostility to foreigners in general. There was malnutrition and starvation spread across the nation. This wasn't just physical malnutrition. There was a spiritual starvation that spread across the nation, and the support for extremist political parties increased across the board. And the net result of all of this was in 1933, Adolf Hitler came to power. He promised to restore Germany, you might say to make Germany great again. He blamed certain groups for the collapse of the economy. He blamed certain groups for the stabbing in the back that led to the German defeat in World War I. And to solve the economic and political problems of Germany, he introduced political totalitarianism together with economic fascism, and what bound it all together was a false worship, that is the idolatry of the Führer. In the Roman Empire, they did exactly the same thing. What held Rome together in the period of the emperors in the first, second, and third centuries was not the economy of the empire, it was the adoration of the Roman emperor. You had to worship the goddess Roma. You had to sacrifice at the statue of the emperor. That was the social glue that brought the whole empire together, which is why Christians were so persecuted, because they would not say Kaiser Kyrios, Caesar is Lord. They would say Jesus Kyrios, Jesus is Lord. They were undermining the whole glue that held the empire together. It wasn't just a matter of a few words. And Adolf Hitler understood this, so he introduced political totalitarianism with economic fascism, and it was held together by the glue of idolatry or false worship, that is the idolatry of the Führer.